I've been gone a while, and that's because once I got my Steam Deck, I've been going through my back catalog of games like there's no tomorrow. I have taken this thing to the moon and back, and have tried to throw every possible game I could at it. There's something so alluring about being able to play what I want anywhere and take it with me on the go. From my bedroom to commuting on plane flights, this device is what my younger self always dreamed of. The Steam Deck is Valve's latest entry into the hardware gaming market, which is dominated by Nintendo, and we've seen the success of the Switch over the last couple of years. Valve, who has limitless pockets and have ventured into the PC market numerous times, are now developing their own PC running SteamOS based on Arch Linux so that you can take your ever-expanding Steam library portable. And that's what makes this a game changer when compared to the latest Sony or Xbox devices, which you have to buy games made for the PS5, whereas the deck gives you access to every Steam game you have ever bought, ever. And of course, you get access to all those Steam sales and discounts that we just typically don't see on consoles, or if you're Nintendo, your prices go up now with your first-party games. Now granted, not every game in your Steam library is going to run on the deck, which is why Valve have created their own verified system which indicates if the game has been tested for the deck and the level of compatibility, such as unsupported or playable, or maybe there's minimal text issues that makes it hard to read on screen. And even with unsupported titles, you'll be surprised at how many will work out of the box or with slight tinkering. While most new experiences are also being developed now with the deck in mind, such as Elden Ring, which launched as a day one flagship title as playable on the Steam Deck, and recently Hogwarts Legacy, which I've been playing through the last week. Although that game does have performance issues that they can hopefully resolve with some patches, but it's still released in a playable state on Steam. It's really the idea of playing a AAA title at release on a handheld and getting the full experience with not many game-breaking sacrifices or downgrades in the graphics department that has me really excited and was what intrigued me the most when I first got my Steam Deck. When you first get the deck, I feel like there's a few stages that you go through with the life cycle. You start out trying the top of the line games and graphics that you could possibly put on this thing. So I threw God of War, Uncharted, Red Dead 2, GTA 5, anything I could possibly think of that would be an open world experience or have high-end graphics that was taking that console experience portable. From there, I started to look at the emulation scene and what kind of ROMs can I play on this thing. So I installed up EmuDeck and started Dolphin for GameCube and Wii emulation. Then there was Semu for Wii U. I was trying PS2. I was going on the Switch. I could play Breath of the Wild with the Semu emulator at higher FPS than what I was getting on the actual Switch performance, which is just insane to me. From there, coming down from my high, I started to play through the backlog of games that I had on Steam, going through some older titles that actually run like a dream on the device and have no issues, and some good battery life as well, which after playing the AAA titles was definitely something nice to have. By this point, I had gotten my money's worth. I thought I had done everything I wanted to do with it, and it was amazing as it was. But then I realized I could take things a step further, that I could install Windows as a dual boot option for the Steam Deck, which allowed me to use my Xbox Game Pass games and play them through Windows. Now originally I thought that this would come with some compromises in the performance department, battery life, and then having to set up the thing. It looked all complicated and difficult. There's actually a subreddit called Windows on Deck that has a super handy guide, and I went through the steps, and within a couple of hours I actually had Windows on my SSD as a dual boot partition and was able to play my Xbox Game Pass games relatively easily, and they worked really well. They actually didn't have any performance difference or stutters that I thought they would have when using the drivers that are provided by Valve because they weren't supportive of Windows. But no, with the new Steam Power Tools that you can install and the drivers, everything ran really, really well. And then I've been playing No Man's Sky, Monster Hunter Rise, and a bunch of other titles from just Windows. I've done a lot of gushing about how much I love this device and how good of a fit it is for me and my lifestyle, but that definitely does not mean that there isn't any cons to owning a Steam Deck, and I've touched on them a little bit throughout this video, especially when it comes to the battery life, which is underwhelming to say the least, and probably not to the expectations of most gamers, especially when they compare it to something like the Switch, which can sometimes offer up to 5 hours with some of the titles, depending on obviously how hardware intensive they are. But the Steam Deck, if you're running a AAA game, you may get 1.5 hours. If you're not adjusting the settings and lowering the frame rate or the resolution, you're really being punished for that. And that's something that gamers may generally not be ready to do. They're going to have to adjust a lot of settings for games. They're going to have to play around with the resolution, what suits them. They're going to have to turn on AMD FX, and if they want the scalar resolution to 2.0 or 1, and if they want quality or performance. To Valve's credit, they have added a lot of options and settings within the SteamOS that allows you to actually change the TDP of the device, which is the wattage, so you can lower the power and usage for games so that they don't actually utilize it if they don't need to, which really comes in handy. And you'd be surprised at how far you can take things down depending on the compromises you take. So if you want to play in 30 frames per second, there's definitely some wattage that you could generally reduce. But in saying that, not everyone is going to be wanting to tinker and play around with those things, and there isn't really a profile or setting that you can adopt from the community or from other people to apply to your Steam Deck at the current time. And I think that Valve already has identified this and agrees, because they've said publicly that if they were to develop the Steam 2, they would focus on the battery and then also the screen of the device, where the screen currently only goes to 800p and is also not the brightest and best panel that they could be using, and it's definitely not an OLED, which compared to the latest OLED Switch is a lot better, and the color range and accuracy on that, and also the power efficiency from OLED is definitely better than what the Steam Deck's offering right now. In terms of the 800p, I actually think it's a nice sweet spot for the Steam Deck, because at that resolution, you don't necessarily need to have more pixels because of the screen size. Though it would be nice, it also then is just going to draw more battery, and also the performance that we're getting is so good because of that lower resolution that the deck has to output, versus if it was at 1080p, it's definitely going to be pushing the hardware quite a bit more. Overall, I think the Steam Deck is really good for the gaming industry. We're seeing more and more portable PC hardware coming out in the market, and it's really good to see. It's just more options for consumers, and obviously a lot of them can't compete with the price of the Steam Deck right now, which is so low because Valve has sourced their own GPU, and it's also most likely taking a loss on the product simply to push it into the market, and also they make most of their money through their Steam sales and software, which is something that the other hardware manufacturers just don't have the option or can't compete with. In the end, I'm really happy with my Steam Deck, and even though I can't even buy it in Australia right now and had to import it, it's still amazing and still worth every penny that I paid. My recommendation is, if you're into emulation, if you want to play through your backlog of titles, and if you don't mind taking a hit in the graphics department to play the latest games, and you want to take them portable, you cannot go wrong with this device. As everyone else has said, the Steam Deck is bang for the buck.